I'm Katie Oman. I obviously work in the ACSDC office. I manage our PAC and grassroots programs, otherwise known as Surgeons PAC and Surgeons Voice. So I'm going to kind of go back to basics just to start. I mean, I think you all are aware, again, I saw a lot of your names and faces on the Leadership and Advocacy Summit registration list. I know that many of you have participated in that for multiple years. But I think that something that we're sort of missing is figuring out how to reach the broader audience about the importance of engaging in advocacy. I think a lot of us who are interested and engaged in this space know that healthcare is constantly changing. Chris talked a lot about, regulation and or government involvement with healthcare and medicine. I mean, that's only continuing to sort of grow. And so I think, really conveying to our folks that they are the experts. Lawmakers in particular want to hear from our membership, about things that are happening sort of on the ground, if you will, within their hospitals, within their practices, with their patients. They want to know about the trends that, these folks are sort of seeing, that potentially the college as a whole could sort of get ahead of and to that extent, maybe develop policy around a particular issue that we could really sort of lead and champion and spearhead. So a lot can come from our folks, truly acting and representing as surgeon advocates, obviously at all levels of government. So again, probably a refresher for a lot of you, but I do think, kind of two good talking points when you're engaging with our folks about sort of the congressional side of things, if you will, is that elected officials are pretty much motivated by two things. Obviously, the folks that vote for them, constituents, and the people who support their campaigns. So our sort of two sides of that coin are Surgeons Voice, which I'll talk about a little bit more, and then the political side, which is obviously Surgeons PAC. So there are multiple opportunities and ways to engage in both of those programs, not only for you all as chapter executives. We have a lot of ways where you can, I'm happy to work with you all. For example, this is a really simple thing, but when we think of Surgeons PAC, I know I've been in touch with some of you about, how do we easily share, with folks how to contribute. We have a mobile-based text platform that I could, for example, create a keyword for you specific to one of your meetings, and you could either just share that keyword in a meeting so that we could attribute any contributions that come into the PAC through your meeting via that simple text feature. Or we obviously have, the ability, like Chris mentioned, I'm happy to do sort of, custom presentations or hop on, a call or a meeting to briefly discuss a specific topic or concern with respect to the PAC or the grassroots or Surgeons Voice side. But a lot of what I do hear from chapters, it seems, is an interest in sort of where does our state stand with respect to PAC activity. So there's a lot more that can be done in that space to provide support to you all. I did want to highlight, and again, probably very familiar to a lot of you, we obviously have online platforms for both Surgeons Voice and Surgeons PAC. Surgeons Voice, I know, so I guess bear with me and I'll bear with you. Surgeons Voice is the easier of the two to find on facts.org. But you can also, just visit surgeonsvoice.org. You can visit surgeonspac.org. But Surgeons Voice seems to be the easier one to find. And the reason that is because the way that the college is structured, being that the ACS is structured as a C3 and the ACS Professional Association is structured as a C6, anything that pertains to the PAC has to essentially be kind of behind a firewall, because we have to make sure that the people that are accessing the PAC information are part of sort of our eligible class. So Surgeons Voice information tends to be really easy to find on facts.org. And we want to direct our members there because Surgeons Voice is kind of the mothership or the primary place where our members can do things like write their lawmakers with pre-drafted letters. We're hoping to get to a place soon where they can also sort of click a button and place a call to an office and then be patched through to the next office that they need to make an ask to. And so we're working kind of within our platform to even further leverage the way that our members can contact Congress through us. But basically, Surgeon's Voice, you should just know, is a good hub to send anybody who wants a little bit more information about our advocacy efforts. There are tools and resources available through Surgeon's Voice. When I say tools and resources, I'm talking about things like toolkits. There are other links to things like the congressional schedule, so individuals can know, when is Congress in or out. There is a meeting scheduling tool where our folks, you all too included, obviously, can simply click on a button, make a request to a lawmaker's office to schedule a meeting, and that office will actually follow up with our fellows and work with them to determine, a date or a couple dates that work best for them. So it's a two-way street. It's not just, yes, oftentimes we all know you are maybe going to work around the lawmaker's schedule a little bit, particularly if the meeting is going to be with a member of Congress. But that's just another great tool that's available that, sadly, I'm not really sure. I know sort of our usual suspects know a lot about these tools that are available. But as Chris mentioned, and as hopefully I'm, kind of reiterating here, we really want to use you and work with you to help expand sort of our audience, because we know that there are interested advocates out there. Again, I mentioned the Surgeon's Voice Advocacy Center. The Surgeon's Voice is obviously the platform where you can find the types of information that I just mentioned. But the Advocacy Center is where our members actually go. They have their own platform, personalized platform that looks a lot like this. So they can see things like where to schedule a meeting. And obviously when they do that, it will be populated to their specific legislators. They can look at who their officials are. We created, and we could also think about doing something like this for chapters. If you look here and see this trauma advocacy page, we had a request from the COT. They sort of wanted a place where if they wanted to send a quick link to COT members and say, listen, I hope you visit Surgeon's Voice and take action on all of the college's important advocacy priorities. But they really wanted a place where they could maybe sometimes, really say, I get that you might not have time to do that, but we really need you engaged in the trauma space. So if you can just go to this trauma advocacy issues page and take action on the following 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be, current legislative action items, that will really sort of help us amplify our efforts. So Chris and I could sort of, talk offline, or, we'd love your input as you're maybe providing it to Chris about broader things we can do to help you. Let us know if, for example, creating a chapter specific, hot topics type of section, could be helpful to further kind of drill down on things that you all want to make sure are sort of getting across to the folks that you regularly engage with. This I'm going to kind of, skip over. This was just a snapshot of current action items on Surgeon's Voice. So typically we're going to keep Surgeon's Voice updated with I'll call them current calls to action, meaning they are things that are moving in Congress. So they typically have bill numbers, and the ask will be something like to co-sponsor. You won't see a lot of issues or activities on Surgeon's Voice that don't have a moving component, because we obviously want to hone in and focus on and contact offices where there is actually, an ability to affect change. We want something that we can go back to our fellows and say, hey, we helped get this funding appropriated, or, we were really successful in getting, additional GME slots in a COVID relief package. So again, you're just a reminder, for you guys as you're sharing this information more broadly, when folks are sort of asking, what's percolating in Congress right now, the Surgeon's Voice Advocacy Center, and in particular, the calls to action is a great place to direct them. I want to mention this Advocacy at Home page. Many of you have heard of, because some of your members have probably received the Advocate of the Year the Advocate of the Year award in the past. This web page on facts.org used to be kind of more dedicated to our Advocacy at Home program, which we as staff would essentially help facilitate during the August congressional recess period meetings for our members with their lawmakers. We would mail information, we would send toolkits. Well, in this virtual environment, we wanted to kind of shift that a little bit and provide additional resources, because our hope / it's probably not fair to say assumption, our hope is that members continue to use our tool to schedule these meetings on their own, but also use this Advocacy at Home page to review things like there are samples if folks want to, participate with their colleagues or engage with their lawmakers on Twitter. There is the Advocacy at Home toolkit that includes things like, meeting best practices. We link back to federal legislative issues in the event that folks want to know more, about a particular legislative issue that's happening. We, again, relink back to the schedule a meeting with your legislator. So this is a great page to either push out or share with folks who are looking to engage more regularly and try to build that relationship with their lawmakers. Again, to just kind of get them started on the right foot. And we're constantly trying to, update and modify sort of, if you look towards the bottom, obviously the resources section. So if you all are, perusing that at any point, or you get feedback from folks about, other tools that would be helpful, please do let us know, because we can absolutely kind of structure this the way that it will obviously be most helpful and beneficial to our members. I mentioned the schedule a meeting tool, so I'm not going to belabor that. It's very easy. Another thing, though, to point out really quickly with respect to not only this meeting template, but also the calls to action on Surgeon's Voice, we try to make it easy for folks. And under this message section, there's pre-populated text. But I do want to flag for you all that you can edit this. So as you are talking to folks, particularly if there are really important issues, or you happen to know that one of your chapter members has a specific example or expertise, as we're looking at advocacy priorities or legislative issues, encourage them to modify the message and, insert part of that story or share their story, if you will, because again, we purposefully, make these somewhat straightforward so that it's easy for the office to understand, what an ask is, or that we're trying to schedule a meeting. But anytime that something a bit more personal can be, inserted or alluded to, it's definitely going to catch an office's attention. I don't want to speed through because the PAC is important, but I want to be mindful of your time. I think a lot of you know that Surgeon's PAC is essentially another tool in the advocacy toolbox, and frankly makes it possible for a lot of the advocacy successes that we have had thus far to have occurred. And that is because the PAC works on behalf of its members to establish relationships with lawmakers. And this is probably not the most important point, but an important point, because I know it's a very politically polarizing climate right now. We engage in relationships, or try to develop relationships with, it's both sides of the aisle. So we work with Democrats and Republicans. We try to be nonpartisan as much as we can. We're more interested in individuals who are willing to help us leverage and advocate for surgical advocacy priorities. So we really do try to keep sort of a policy focused approach with respect to those that we're engaging and contributing to. And I think another thing that I get asked a lot that's probably really relevant for you all is we do not participate in state and local races. So a lot of times I'll get an email, and I've reached out to some of you kind of to the same token saying, hey, have you heard anything about this candidate running? Their campaign pinged me. I'm wondering what your chapter thinks about this individual. So I've probably done that to several of you in the past. Do the same to me. If you all hear about folks that you have questions about, or if you're contacted by somebody that's running for federal office, it's really good for me to know. But again, just so you all know, we don't participate, and meaning we do not give financial support to state and local races at this time. We are strictly sort of in the federal space. The same goes for presidential candidates. That was a really polarized, 2020 was polarizing, I think, for that reason too. And so again, sharing this information with you all and hoping that you can sort of help me get this out there so that we can sort of clear up some of the misnomers about the PAC is mutually beneficial. Again, I mentioned that obviously we have Surgeons PAC online. Obviously it's our primary online presence, but I do if you don't take anything else away from the PAC other than this next point, fine. Unfortunately, and this is another thing that we are working on, again, because of the C3, C6 structure, it makes it very difficult for us to house PAC information on facts.org. But we are currently working on a landing page so that, for example, if you typed Surgeons PAC in the search bar, you would come up with a more comprehensive explanation, at least, of what the PAC does. You would still then be prompted, for those who are interested and contributed, they would still have to go through to the password protected PAC site. So that is something that unfortunately is always going to remain. It's a legal barrier. But I do want to flag for you all that this box right here is oftentimes what people land on when they just type in www.surgeonspac.org. So that's a little ambiguous. It's kind of like, where am I? What does this have to do with the PAC? But I just kind of want to flag for you all that if they are not logged in to facts.org, they can sometimes land on this page. So if you get contacted about issues logging in, I just wanted you to be aware that this actually at the moment is the place that they need to be to then, if they're not logged in, enter their facs.org username and password, and then they will carry through to the Surgeons PAC site, where they can find out things like you can look at your profile and you can see the history of your contributions. So we get that question a lot. You can review frequently asked questions. And then most importantly, I would argue for probably you all, because you may get this question, or just to share with them, is that there is a disbursement section and it has a map. This page as a whole is populated with current PAC disbursement information, meaning you can go to your respective state and click on it to see who Surgeons PAC has given to in your state. Now, granted, that only applies to the current year. So as you would imagine, at the moment, we're obviously going to have less contributions to members of Congress within this map as a whole, because it's still a little bit early in the election cycle, 2-year cycle, obviously. So we're in the 2022 cycle. We're newly into giving folks money in 2021. But just for your knowledge, it's a great place for people to go when they say to you, I don't even know who our PAC's giving to. Check out the disbursement map on Surgeons PAC. I did want to share with you guys that as of to date, and again, I'm happy to provide more detailed reports. I'm happy to give you, lists of folks in your chapters if you're interested to see just kind of, where people are, or those who may be politically active that you're not even necessarily aware of, in case it could be helpful to other of your efforts. But at the moment, so meaning, as of right now, as of, mid-May, these are kind of our top states as far as PAC giving is concerned. So just kind of wanted to give you that snapshot. And then again, I won't belabor this, but there are a lot of misnomers out there about Surgeons PAC. So if you do get questions that you can't answer, or you just would like assistance with, or you personally want to have, additional information on hand to give people, to give our members who, inquire about the PAC, happy to provide more information, because I would rather folks have, you know, a clearer picture of what the PAC does and who we give to, than to just assume that the PAC is not doing what they want it to do. Contributing is easy. Don't tell anyone that I told you this. Sometimes it's not easy. We can have tech snafus. It is what it is sometimes, but I will share with you and kind of give you all a preview that we are definitely a priority post advocacy summit is updating our PAC website to make it much easier for folks to have sort of a 1, maybe 2 max click experience when they're going online. But again, I mentioned the text feature. I can always create, you'll see on this example, it has YFA ACS, but I'm happy to create like a code for your chapter that you could use, you know, year after year. And it makes it obviously really easy for us to track and also give you reports if that's something you're interested in. And then there's obviously snail mail. We do have to sort of keep that option. Chris talked about a lot of several of these things, and I think you all probably know better than anybody, but there are a multitude of ways to engage in advocacy, both just sort of the straight advocacy side and the grassroots portion of it, plus the political side. And those are things like the Advocacy Summit, Surgeon's Voice, Surgeon's PAC, chapter lobby days. HPAC is a great resource. It's frankly a committee that you can encourage anybody to become a member of. We send monthly email communications. We try to do at least quarterly conference calls, but it's a great way to kind of loop in folks who just say, hey, you know, I really want to know more about advocacy and I want to participate, but I'm not really sure where I want to be in the advocacy space. The Health Policy Advisory Council is a great way to offer them to get engaged. We obviously have social media and a lot of other events that we tend to host in what I'll call a more normal climate. But that is all that I have for you all today. So